Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we come together to record after we've watched an anime, and we discuss it through this podcast like it's a book club, and we return the discussion over to you, the listener, to carry on, to engage with the debates, start new debates. That's what the whole show is about. And we actually have come back to an anime we watched the first half of, but production got stalled. It was delayed in the second half of release. We are back to it. It is Moriarty the Patriot, episodes 12 through 24. It's the second half of the first season, and we're back to the game is afoot. All right. So, to help discuss this anime, I have the help of one of my co-hosts, is the casino to my royale. Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. A little bit pooped, but doing pretty good. Work has been absolutely crazy the last couple of weeks, so I haven't really got a chance to do anything fun. But Tanya started watching Arrested Development, and so this is the first time that I've actually seen it. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed. I had heard that it was pretty good, but I had no idea how... it skips around a lot. I'm kind of surprised every time that a new episode starts and it starts to give you that, like, hey, this has happened, or the characters start talking to each other and they'll say things sort of inferring that something happened that didn't quite seem like you were in a position where that could have happened in the last episode. And a couple of times now I've checked to see if we're on the wrong episode, just to see if maybe like watched it out of order or something, but no, it's just the way it handles its story beats is it's like an indeterminate amount of time passes between each episode, and who knows what happens in that. But it's really funny.
Rest in peace, Jessica Walters. Man, when she died, I was so sad. The mom.
Oh, it's the mom? Oh.
Yeah, and she's also the mom on Archer, and basically playing the same character, but the mother of a spy. Man, she is funny, and but yeah, that cast is stacked. I love Arrested Development. I'm watching. All right, we also have the Quantum of My Solace. Jason, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Got to soccer season has started, so that's been consuming part of my life. But I also got to try out the Vanguard beta. I'll have to say it's got its problems. Obviously, it's a beta, but I enjoyed it much more than I did Cold War. So I'm looking forward to the next iteration or release or whatever it is. So
that's Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, Call of Duty. It's a World War II setting. The time to kill is much higher than, much lower than others, or at least it seems that
fast.
way. But yeah, it's real fast.
You die fast.
But, speaking of dying, I've been playing a lot of 7 Days to Die, and I dug out one too many pieces of dirt. My entire base fell on top of me, and I died. So.
Nice. See, that's what happens when physics, works as it's expected to.
Right?
Yeah.
Lame. All right. My name is Troy, and I am the Spectre
the gold to
of
my
this group.
finger.
Oh.
No, we're only doing the Daniel Craig movies because Daniel Craig is the best Bond.
Okay.
Wrong.
I stand on this hill. I stand on a lot of hills, I know.
Yeah. Got like a foot on every hill.
that is me. I have been watching Star Wars Visions, but I'm going to save my thoughts for when we bring it to this podcast, because I think I have everyone's permission to bring it here for the Christmas movie. Instead of doing a movie, we're going to do Star Wars Visions. It's about 2 hours long in total, so that'll be perfect. So I'm going to save my thoughts on that, even though I have been watching it.
Well, we watched the first 3 of those too.
Oh, cool. We'll talk about it when we're not recording.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially episode 3. I wish I could have seen your face. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm here to tell you about the gospel of the movie Malignant. So Malignant by director James Wan came out on of HBO Max and then in theaters. So I saw it on HBO Max. It I don't want to spoil too much, but it was great fun. It's a fun movie. It is a stupid movie. It is. It is. It's also not what it pretends to be. So I've been looking at like user reviews, and it's like 50-50. Love it or you hate it. And I think it's because it advertises that it's Conjuring 4, Insidious 4, one of James Wan's other horror movies. Very serious, good, but very serious horror movies. This is not what that is, and it's very much a throwback to early 2000s camp, which is a throwback to like 70s camp. It's a campy horror movie, and it's near in the last act, my jaw just dropped, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is so silly. This is so weird. I've never seen anything like this before." And clearly, his time directing a Fast and the Furious movie has made impacts on some of his choices. I was all about it. So if that sounds pleasant to you, Malignant is the movie for you. It is not the demonic ghost movie you think it is. It is something else. And it is very fun. But even people I've shared it with, I've had half like, why did you make me watch that stupid movie too? That was the coolest thing I have watched all year. So it is very divisive, but I loved it.
Is it gory?
Yes, it is very gory.
Okay.
It is.
I would roll my eyes the entire way through that movie. Just
so good.
not for me.
All right. Let's go on and talk about our anime. Again, this is the second half of Moriarty the Patriot. We did discuss the first half, so if you are not caught up, that would be where you would want to start. I don't even know what episode it was. It's been a while. There was definitely some catching up for me to do going into the second half. But yeah, it's in our backlog. Moriarty the Patriot, part 1. But yeah, we're here to discuss part 2. So before we go to our spoiler section, so this will be spoiler free. Jason, this was your choice. I'll let you start. What did you think? Do you recommend it?
I like it. I think it's definitely worth a watch. It's it's very much a non-Western culture take on Western like spy tropes when it comes to mysteries and the Sherlock universe, and then also tying in some other stuff. So it's actually pretty cool. I think there's some improvements that could be made, but I think it's worth a watch. I had a lot of fun.
All right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
I just maybe it's just not in my wheelhouse, but I really didn't enjoy it. I had to take breaks and go ask Tanya if she had a honeydew list for me. Like, is there anything? Please let me like fix the toilet paper dispenser or do some plumbing work or fill in some holes in the wall, just something. Yeah, it's just not my cup of tea. And I think the main reason is because, well, I have read some Sherlock. I'm not really a huge Sherlock fan. So I didn't come to it with that as kind of a supporting reason to like it. And also, there's just this overwhelming sense to me, what I get is a sort of like the anime is very melodramatic and it takes itself really seriously, but then it's interspersed with a lot of things that are the exact opposite. And so that dichotomy doesn't really sit well with me. And yeah, exactly. And so... yeah, I can't really say that I enjoyed it, but I definitely recognize that people who are fans of Sherlock Holmes, and especially if they're fans of Sherlock Holmes and fans of anime, you're definitely going to like it.
I am a fan of both those things, even though I have also not read a lot of Sherlock. I think the only one I know for sure I've read is The Hounds of Baskerville. I think I said that last time. But watch the whole Sherlock show, watch the Robert Downey Jr. movies. I've seen other stuff with Sherlock. I am a fan of the tale, but I guess I'm a fake fan because I haven't actually read the source material. Much like many of the animes we watch, right?
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. My wife had a really good revelation for us tonight on the podcast. She said, Troy, you enjoy a good story. Jeremy enjoys a story told well. And that fits right in here. I think there's a good story in here, and I absolutely agree it's not perfectly told. I do think they make a lot of mistakes, which we'll get into in the spoiler section, but I was entertained through it. And it helped that it was the Sherlock Holmes universe. They made some choices that are silly, but I ended up loving them. So we'll get into all that. But I do recommend it. But yeah, I agree mostly with Jeremy too. If Sherlock's a thing that you're interested in and you like watching anime, this will make you happy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's talk about the intro and the outro. What did you guys think of those?
I wasn't impressed. I thought the intro was much better. It had okay music. The visuals were good, but yeah, nothing to write home about.
I just love the line in the intro. You don't have no love. I can give you love, or something like that. And
Yep.
I was like, what? I thought this was about solving mysteries. What's love got to do with it? Right? But yeah,
It's
I
just
don't
a
know.
secondhand emotion.
Yes. Pulling
I see
songs
where you
out of
went there.
songs. Yes. But I just, yeah, I don't know. I really didn't like the intro or the outro. To me, it just did again that same thing. It confused the tone for me. Like, what exactly am I watching? What is the core theme of this? You know, is it about the emotions of these characters, or is it about the mystery, or is it about the issues they're trying to solve? Like, what is it that I'm trying to get from this anime? And the intro just further confused that for me.
The last intro I remember really loving because of how symbolic it was. There was a lot of symbolism, and I actually said like, "This is how you do an anime opening. You don't spoil anything, but you use a bunch of symbolism to kind of prep everybody." I didn't really get that this time, but I enjoyed the song, and the ending song ended up winning me over after like the 5th or 6th viewing. I wasn't a fan at first, but it was winning me over. It's a little upbeat for we're coming off of murders and stuff, but that's fine.
Seems to be consistent that
Yeah,
way.
I was
There's a
gonna
lot
say
of
we're
anime now.
having a hard time getting tones to match with our EDs. Like
Yeah.
they just want to do like these fun poppy songs. It's like you just murdered like 10 characters.
Right?
All right,
I don't know.
let's.
This felt very much less about mystery, like Jeremy was saying, and more about manipulation and who's manipulating who.
Chess. Yeah, they're playing more
Mhm.
Yeah.
chess there.
I think that's probably why I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Because historically, Sherlock Holmes solves puzzles, and Moriarty is the one making puzzles. So since we're mostly seeing it, the main character's Moriarty, we're in the puzzle creation more than the puzzle solving. All right, let's go to spoilers so we can really dig into this bad boy. So spoiler warning is dropping. We have a ton of characters to get through, a ton of story to get through. And so we will be doing that now. Again, this is from episode 12, so we hope you're all caught up and are ready to go. We're going to crash through a bunch of characters here, especially in this first episode, but we're going to start. We start with Sherlock and Holmes and John Watson. So thoughts on Sherlock Holmes in this half of the season, guys?
I loved the Japanese take of Sherlock Holmes. Just the witty and almost anime protagonist type of character, but willing to go out on a limb for his friends, but also knows amazingly well hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, I actually enjoyed his character, but I enjoyed his attempts at solving things and the way he thought, the way he did deduction. I thought was written fairly well. And Watson wasn't just a sideline character in this, which I appreciated. He had a role to play.
There were a few things that I kind of thought Sherlock should have picked up on faster than he did. One of them was with Irene Adler when she started showing up in men's clothing and with her hair up before she actually changed character roles. And I was really surprised that he did not pick up that it was Irene Adler right away. And that it, in fact, took him quite a while. I think it was like eventually an item, a piece of evidence that she gave him is what clued him in on that. He never figured it out on his own. And that just, to me, seemed to lessen his ability to solve problems. In my eyes, at least, I thought that was less than what I expected from him. But then, especially when it starts by him being like, you've gained 7.5 pounds, John, right? So you can tell all these biometrics, but I can't tell that that's a woman. Yeah, so that was one thing that kind of bugged me a little bit. I liked that the arc kind of got completed at one point where, and I don't remember exactly what I thought of this, but I have suspicions that I didn't like it, because looking back, I didn't like it. Looking back, I don't have really positive inclination toward it, and that is where he almost killed someone, but like didn't do it, and John was super mad at him in the first one, and then we see that kind of arc completing itself in this one, and we find out who he really is and what he thinks of himself and everything, and I kind of liked where it went with that in this episode, where he does actually kill somebody, and we do find out why and what he thinks of himself.
What about afterwards?
I didn't like that.
His arc doesn't end when he kills someone. His arc actually ends when he apologizes to Watson.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess I was thinking of the arc as in, like, he made a decision not to kill someone, even though it was going to grant him a solution to a mystery because he wanted to solve the mystery himself, et cetera, et cetera. But then now he actually would pull the trigger. So then does that mean that he would have pulled the trigger if it wasn't going to be something that would solve the mystery? Because that was really what stopped him, is like, no, I don't want to know. I want to solve this myself. So I'm not going to kill you, but I kind of do want to know, but I don't. I want to solve it myself. So he was the kind of person who would kill somebody even back then. I wonder, it's a possibility. So I guess that's what I meant. Maybe it's not really an arc. Maybe it's more of just a character reveal that maybe was unclear at the time, but now it seems a little bit clearer. Yeah, I like that.
It's funny that the anime version of Sherlock Holmes is probably the most human version of him, because, like you said, there's very things that you would think he would pick up on, and he misses. His deductions are a little behind. He's secondary to Moriarty in this, not primary. And in the original story, Sherlock beats Moriarty to the point where Moriarty just wants to murder him for revenge. It's very much he's on the back heel this whole time. There are things he's missing. I did enjoy him, though. He was still fun. He was more sociable than you're used to Sherlock being. But the arc that I saw of my life is not one of the things I can spend to solve equations anymore, which then reflects the main character's same arc that's been over the whole season. So he gets this little mini arc and John yelling at him like, your life doesn't mean your life. It means, the people who care about you. It affects people that there's a connections, and that plays into him getting involved with the final solution of Moriarty. And I thought that was actually really well done, especially bringing in the character Milverton, who I'm assuming he probably killed him in the original story. I know from the BBC show that always comes to Sherlock. How do I beat this guy? He beaten me at every turn. There's no way out. Oh, but he didn't see that. I'll just frickin' shoot him, and just go get arrested and commit murder. And so I really like that they tied that into this larger original story for William Moriarty. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, just as a notable detail in the original story, he did not kill Milverton. He actually was there just to retrieve some documents and witnessed a woman kill Milverton.
Really?
Yeah, one of his victims who didn't want to.
That's funny. So the BBC version and then this one both made the same choice, that Sherlock gets basically pushed into a corner and says, "Well, there's this one thing you didn't think I would do. And that's commit murder."
Bang bang.
You thought I was a hero. I never said I was a hero.
Right. That's interesting. All right. And then Watson, because he's the catalyst for that arc, I thought was probably a little more useful of a Watson than we're used to seeing. Yeah, so I enjoyed Watson, even though mostly he's just kind of a typical Watson throughout this. But I did like that he kind of pointed out that humanity to Sherlock and helps him help William. All right. They're at home, and this tall, very observant man rushes in and he shoots Sherlock in the head with a paintball. And this is Mycroft. Mycroft Holmes. What do you guys think of Mycroft?
He was, I don't know. It was tough because he wasn't he didn't get a ton of screen time. He was more of a plot point and a plot driver, because he was the connection to the royal family, or at least the government. And it was interesting to see the interaction because they're brothers, but yeah, but he was okay, I guess.
I didn't like the logic of Mycroft, and I didn't like how he was portrayed, because the Mycroft from the books, he's not charismatic. Like, there's nothing charismatic about Mycroft. And so to see Sherlock's brother portrayed in a manner where he's basically another hot guy that has all this charisma in his demeanor is just, I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it kind of feels like you're painting them all with one stroke, same color. And I want to see a little bit more variation in the characters, especially when those characters have that variation in the source material. So that kind of irked me a little bit. But then when Mycroft winds up kind of siding with Moriarty and being willing to like overlook all of the things that they're doing just because, they have this noble goal, all of the tools and the wits and the intelligence and everything he has at his disposal, to the point where he is the government, and he can't try to solve these problems his own way. He's relying on a criminal network that is operating independently. I don't know, that whole thing just kind of, it didn't seem to click in my mind as a sensible or logical. It felt very construed, very much just a way to force more sympathy for William's side of things.
Jeremy, you actually had a comment earlier before we recorded that Mycroft is a character who's min-max, as
Yes.
far as stats, right? I've always loved that to Mycroft, Sherlock's the dumb one, but because Mycroft has no social skills, he can't do what Sherlock does. Sherlock, while he struggles in society, he at least can engage with it. While as Mycroft, he has to be locked in a government room making, but he does seem to me like the guy who, make sacrifices for the greater good. I'm all for that. That's logically sound, and that's all I care about. While as Sherlock, oddly, is the emotional one to Mycroft. So I actually was fine with his decisions in this, but I do agree it was very off-putting that he was like, oh, I'm this tall, attractive man, and I just have a better handle on things than Sherlock does. He just doesn't understand the world. I'm like, you're supposed to be a fat guy, but the BBC version doesn't do the fat guy, so that's fine. But yeah, you're supposed to just like suck at talking to people. Like you could not help people, and you are supposed to be kind of morally bankrupt for England's greater good, not even like the greater good, but I'm all in on England. And manipulating Sherlock Holmes as needed, which there was a little bit in there. So I do think it's kind of a waste of a really exquisite character from the Sherlock pantheon.
Yeah.
All right. He basically warns Sherlock, hey, be careful of women. Trying to hint at something. Well, meanwhile, Sherlock has gotten a letter, and he figured out it's from Germany, and they're asking. It's basically someone saying, "Hey, I'm going to hire you for a job. I'll be coming in." And he's like, "Well, this is clearly from someone rich in Germany, based on the paper." At the same time, we then re-engage with the Moriartys through Mycroft, actually, who calls in Colonel Albert Moriarty. I remember Albert is the real Moriarty, the brother, the son of the nobles that adopted William and Lewis into the family, and then these three brothers murdered everyone and became the
good guys.
Yeah, the three good guys.
Yeah.
So he calls Albert in and he's like, "Hey, I need you to find this woman, Irene Adler. She has stolen something from the British government that is super confidential. You are to retrieve it, bring it back to me, and then kill her." So of course Albert runs to William and Lewis and says, "Hey guys, I'm on a super secret confidential mission. What do we want to do about this?" So this is a good time to talk about our Moriarty. So we'll start with William, our main protagonist. What do you guys think of William James Moriarty in this?
I liked William. And I think the reason is, like I mentioned, I think an episode or two back, I really appreciate a good how catch 'em instead of a whodunit, because I feel like I'm focusing too much on the mystery of the story rather than the interaction between the good guy and bad guy. And watching William, this show did a good job of not giving you everything that William was doing, but kind of let you know, okay, I'm going in this direction. These are some of the things I'm doing. You get to figure out the rest. I thought it was a really good balance, and William's character did a good job of being this benevolent bad guy, orchestrating bad things to ultimately get to what he saw was a good end, and made him a fairly complicated gray character. So yeah, I liked his portrayal.
I thought he was okay. He was interesting for most of it, just in the sense that like he's a mastermind doing mastermind things, like you were saying, Jason. And the only issue I had with him was that all of a sudden in the last couple of episodes, he has this conscience that just appears out of nowhere, and it's so important that it is the motivation behind his self-sacrifice all of a sudden. Like he's carrying the burden of all these evil deeds that he did, and it's so heavy now that we're constantly getting scenes of him looking at his bloodied hands and, you know, thinking about the damage he's done. That wasn't there at all up till this point. And that just really threw me. Yeah, because it was like all of that consistency about this being a cold, callous mastermind who's just trying to, you know, achieve his greater good disappeared.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually love the decision. I think it's a great thing to like, hey, actually these horrible things he's doing have been weighing on him, but I do wish they had been hinting, like showing us him looking at his hand and seeing bloods from the beginning, and just kind of hinting along the way, like something, this eats at him more than it looks like it does, so that when we get to this point, because it's a brilliant move of making him like, oh, I'm not a sociopath. I realize I've been the devil, but I'm willing to take on those sins and commit those sins for the greater good. And I have this, I'm going to take punishment, but it's really so I can escape this heavy burden I've placed on myself. I love that decision, but yeah, why not set it up? Why not hint at it all the way through? That's such a great character dynamic. And I think one of my big complaints, and it's out for Sherlock too, actually, and I kind of skipped over it, but we have two protagonists, and the anime wants to spend time with both of them when they not giving either one the full attention they deserve and full fleshing out. And I think that's hindering a lot of the storytelling or development of both Sherlock and William, because we don't get to spend enough time with either of them to see how things are affecting them. It's just kind of like, okay, here's a case from Sherlock, and oh, here's William doing some more murder, and then back to Sherlock. Well, how did William feel about those murders? I would like to talk about that. Let that breathe a little bit. And they don't have time to do that. But I do enjoy the decisions they make with the character, and I do enjoy the character. It's just, well, why wait till the end? I just don't get that. All right, and then on to Albert. Albert bums me out right now. Okay, Albert Moriarty, what do you guys think?
I don't know. He became less of a co-conspirator and more of a, I love my brother and I want to save him near the end. And he had less of a part in the plan.
That's Lewis, isn't it?
That was
That's
Lewis.
the blonde
Oh,
one?
that is Lewis. My bad.
Albert's the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why was he in the red outfit for, like, what is that, the Royal Guard?
He's a colonel. He's actually enlisted in the military. He's the colonel that Mycroft sends to get.
It confused me at first too.
Yeah, I was like,
what?
Mycroft tells a random soldier, and then he went and told William. I'm like, oh, that was Albert. It has been a while since I've seen him.
Exactly.
To be fair, but okay, yeah, that's Albert.
Yeah.
As far as Albert's concerned, I thought I really liked his arc in when it came to the party, because it kind of showed him all in on orchestrating things from the background. But then he just kind of disappears for half the anime. And so I was just like, I kind of bummed out because I actually liked his inclusion. That was one of the cool things about the first half of the anime is Albert, Lewis, and William discussing and planning and executing, we just kind of lose track of both Albert and Lewis throughout the second half.
Yeah, I agree completely. This was just, he was there for that one beat, and then the rest of the time I could care less about what's going on with Albert, simply because they're not making him important. Until the very end, when all of a sudden he's like, hey, let me suffer the punishments. And I'm like, oh, that's right, you exist. I forgot about you.
When we did part 1, I made 2 guesses, one about Albert and one about Lewis. Albert did not work out. And man, I thought I was seeing foreshadowing in these episodes. I'm like, oh, I'm going to nail this one. In the OP, they showed the entire Moriarty group, and he's not in the shot. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? Oh, is he actually not on their team? Because I had guessed that he was so committed to the plan that he was actually going to betray William. And nope. He's all good. There's even a scene where he's talking to Irene Adler, and they're at a party where someone's pretending to be the Lord of Crime, and he gets murdered first. He goes off to the side. The Lord of Crime gets caught in the game, and then actually dies of real poison that Albert gave him. And I'm like, oh, is that foreshadowing that he's gonna let William get caught and then have him take him out, and then he'll be like, because right after that scene, he turns to Irene. He's like, I'm the Lord of Crime. I'm like, oh, that's going to be the ending, is he's going to like take the mantle and he'll become the true James Moriarty after he's sacrificed William. Nope. That would have been brilliant foreshadowing. Nope.
I really like that. But,
right. So I kept waiting for the reveal that Albert had some secondary plan where he benefited from all this, but no, he was just in it and willing to fund it and then willing to go to prison at the end. And that seems really dull to me. I feel like there was so much more potential there. I ended up not really liking the character because I don't feel like he was serving any purpose besides keep me in high society so that the real James Moriarty can do his work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's talk about Lewis. But before we talk about Lewis, I need to say something. In the first part, I kept saying Simon for his name.
Yeah.
And I promise you this is not a bit, but I did it again in my notes. I wrote Simon almost every time. So if I call him Simon in the recording, I'm going to try really hard not to. It is not a joke or a callback. I just messed up again.
Like, where did the name Simon even come from?
No idea.
No.
I
So
don't even think there's a Simon in this show.
I haven't messed up yet, but his name is Lewis. He's not the twin brother. He's the almost identical twin brother, but different ages of William. Your guys' thoughts on Lewis?
I liked him a lot in the first half, and I wasn't a big fan of him this half. He seemed more concerned with trying to redeem his brother than he was committed to the plan and working with his brother to create these plans and executing these plans. He just kind of seemed missing for quite a few episodes, and he kind of falls in the same bucket as Albert. Like, we get more shots with Moran and Fred than we do with the two main brothers, and that was a little disappointing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought, if I remember correctly, Troy, you saw a bit of possible jealousy, and maybe it was you, Jason. I can't remember which one of you said it, but you saw a bit of possible jealousy from Lewis directed towards Sherlock Holmes, and I really liked where that possibility was going to go, and it didn't really go there. I mean, there was like a moment where
the episode where they were on the train.
Yeah. And then in this half of it, there was a moment where it seemed like maybe that was resurfacing and maybe it would come to fruition and we'd have some kind of important scene. But no. In the end, nothing was ever said about any kind of rivalry or jealousy there. And I was really sad that didn't happen, because that would have been cool too.
So the other guess I had from part 1 was that Lewis would care more about his brother and betray the plan. And that did happen. And that felt really good. But I also didn't see any setup for that in this half. It had come from the first half. I guessed that in our last podcast, and it came to fruition, but they didn't really bring it back up again. It wasn't until the end, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember I said that. I'm glad that's happening, but okay, where did that come from this time? Also, the scar in no way pays off. Ever.
No.
No, like, oops, we got the wrong guy, body doubles, something I thought they were going to do for sure. That scar has got to be important. At just one point, he's like, I'm not going to hide this anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Were we hiding the scar? Was that a thing?
That's what that hairstyle was for. I kind of wondered when he showed up with the hairstyle. I was like, oh, he's hiding the scar, but I never expected him to say it. So that was kind of funny.
So, probably could have been fleshed out a little better, but I am glad that at least this is something they took some time to foreshadow. If you look at the series as a whole, and that it paid off, it made sense to me too when the character made that decision and went about those actions. Even though his conspirator in it was just kind of out of the blue and random, but he made sense.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird how Fred and Moran both got a lot of airtime, and yet we still really don't know anything about them.
So I did learn Moran is actually from the books. I don't know about Fred, but Moran is definitely a real henchman of Moriarty in the books. He's one of the bad guys Sherlock fights, and has a cane with a revolver in it that shoots really far distance and almost silently. So the rifle he uses by Herder is actually from the books.
Oh, you mean Q?
Yeah, I was gonna say Herder. That's the character I like because he's cute.
But Herder is in the book though, and he is Herder. But yeah, they make it cute. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right, so Sherlock gets this job, and it's basically this prince who's like, "Hey, I was gonna marry Irene Adler. She stole this compromising photo of me, and now I need you to go retrieve it from her." Sherlock's, "Yeah, I'll take the case." The prince goes home, takes off his clothes. He's actually Irene Adler in disguise.
He gets in a bath.
Then gets in the bath, and then
Good
Sherlock
fan shot.
Sherlock and Watson go to her house to talk to her. He's got this plan, like, we'll use a smoke bomb, and then she'll look for what's important to her. So she'll look for the picture, and then we'll be able to identify it. Let's talk about Irene Adler. And I just want to say, I always love Irene Adler. I love her as a foil to Sherlock, whereas like Moriarty is, I'm your equal or better in intelligence. She's like, I am I can think in social ways you can't, especially with feminism and sexuality, and it's a blind spot for Sherlock. I love that. So I'm a big fan of Irene Adler, but what do you guys think of this version?
I really thought it was a great addition to the cast. I liked when she was working with Sherlock, and then I like her transformation of having to basically take on a new identity. And also, I really loved that the reason she had to basically go into witness protection from the government wasn't some contrived, like, seemingly nonsensical piece of evidence, but something that could literally start wars between nations. I thought that was really cool that that's what she accidentally stumbled upon. But and then, you know, her performance throughout the rest of the anime, I really enjoyed. I liked that, you know, she didn't become overpowered, but she was able to use her skills. But then also we saw gaps in her like ability to think on her feet and like her base training. I really enjoyed the arc she went through.
I was a fan of Irene Adler when she was Irene Adler. I was not a fan of Irene Adler when she changed identities and became another character. But it's more simply because it's a different character that gets introduced that, to me, I just have a really difficult time combining that character into the story of Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, because the two take place like decades and decades apart, a century possibly. And so it just, in my head, the two don't go well together. It almost shifts the story into like the same mode as maybe Drifters or something, where you have all of these characters coming from different times and different eras, and they're joining together to fight a common cause or to fight each other or whatever. It kind of seemed like they did this all of a sudden with this anime, where they're like, wouldn't it be cool if we get James Bond all of a sudden? I'm like, no.
Oh, this is the prequel.
Yeah, exactly. It's the prequel to MI6. Yeah. And so I really wasn't a fan of that, just because of that for the most part. But it also to me seemed like when she went through that character transformation, I kind of wondered she could have picked any identity. right? And she had a thing that was pretty quickly emphasized when she interacted with the girls who threw the other girl off of the deck, that she really wanted to see you work hard, stand on your own, and through your own merit, forge ahead for your own identity of who you are, right? And become someone of yourself, not take on an identity that's so far from her identity. And so it just seemed to me that it would have been more interesting and more fitting to the character that she had already established if she had gone with a girl, if she had stayed a female. Now, I don't have a problem with her switching into the role of being a guy. It just didn't seem like it fit the character that she was. She seemed proud of what she had accomplished. She might throw on a disguise every now and then, but it kind of seemed like a little bit of a stretch for her to be like, okay, now I'm going to always be a dude. It just didn't seem like the Irene Adler that we were presented with.
I absolutely, this is my favorite character. Again, I love Irene Adler in all forms. And last time I had said like, oh, I ship Sherlock and Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah.
And like and then Irene Adler showed up in this. I was like, oh yeah, Irene Hudson. Bye, Mrs. Hudson. I don't care about you anymore.
Exactly.
I love Irene Adler. And that kind of happens in this anime too, where they have this butting heads moment. But yeah, she worked well in this situation of, Sherlock meets her and she's like being all super friendly. He's like, wait, that's not the profile I already built for her in my head. What's going on? Why? I've never been this thrown off. That's classic Irene and Sherlock. I as far as I know, and I love that. I will go more into the character change when we get to it, but I absolutely loved it. I didn't pick up the same thing you did with the confirming your identity. She definitely had the, hey, you should be on your own merits. Who gets the role and who wins. Basically, it should be based on merit and who does the best. I didn't really get be yourself or be just only yourself part of it. And like I said, I will get more into why I love the change when we get to the change, because I want to go over some of the details of it. But it is silly, though. I think we agree on that. It's a very silly thing to just suddenly name another literary character out of the blue. But at least it's a literary character, and I kind of agree with Jason that I see it very much as a prequel leading to the real thing eventually. But we'll go more into it when we get there.
I hope not. I hope they don't make something of that.
Wait till you hear my explanation. Wait till I go through the whole thing. Okay.
I'll give you that.
All right, so they do the smoke bomb, and she's literally holding the picture they want. Like totally knows what they're doing. So, Watson's pretending he's the thief and he sneaks the smoke bomb in. But then the house catches on fire. All part of Irene's plan. She wanted this to happen because she's like, oh, well, I guess I have to go live with you now, Sherlock. She's doing this on purpose to literally be in hiding from the British government. They can't come murder her when she's hanging out with the world famous Sherlock Holmes. So they take her back to 221B Baker Street.
I think so.
Yeah, 221B.
221B Baker Street.
I did think it was funny because Watson clearly throws the smoke bomb in front of him, and then the fire rages behind him. Yeah. And he's like, Sherlock, you told me this wasn't going to catch fire.
You're really dumb, Watson.
Yeah, and so she basically starts living with him, hanging out, making Sherlock go shopping with her. And then we get the scene where they see a young actress being bullied by rich young actresses, and they literally push this young girl into the river.
The sewage river, by the way.
Thames, yeah, it's the icky one. And Irene dives in after her and saves her, and then gives her some encouragement and talks trash to these rich girls, and that's where she's like, yeah, on your own merit, we should. This is the world I want to make. I want to make a world where, those who do well is because they did well, not because they had rich parents and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And Sherlock gives her his clothes. They return home, and while they do, Albert, in disguise, bumps into her and delivers a letter into her clothing. And then we get the scene with, again, I thought this was brilliant foreshadowing. That's something that didn't happen. It's the dinner party. So, Albert's at this dinner party. I already explained it with the Lord of Crime. he's first out, and then someone pretends to be out, and it's actually Irene in disguise. The letter had said to meet him here. They discuss, hey, the government has sent me to kill you and collect those papers that you stole. And she's like, okay, well, what if we work out a deal? And he's like, nope, no deal. The British government won't let me do a deal. But you see, I'm actually the Lord of Crime, and I can help you if you give me the papers and tell me what's on them. And so she agrees. What we find out is that the French Revolution was actually orchestrated by England as an experiment to see if they could. And so
What
they
happens when you
they
start
can't
a
let-
revolution?
yeah, they can't let
Yeah.
France find out, and yeah, especially since it went sideways clearly, and a lot of people died. That it was not intended, but yeah, definitely is a black spot in their history, and they have to keep this hush hush. And Albert's really excited about this because they're trying to start a revolution, and I kept thinking this would play a bigger part of like, oh, now we have like the formula we need to finish our plan, but nope. And they came up with something that, well, we'll get to their solution in the end, but I was like, oh, this is going to lead to something, and it doesn't. They're just like, oh, that will just get us one more member of our team.
Yes.
That's how that happens. So she goes back to Sherlock's house, and he's attacked. There's an explosion. It blows up his entire flat. She runs in. He's like, run, they're coming after you. And so she runs, and she grabs the papers, and then Sherlock's there, and he's like, okay, so you fell for it this time. We just had to go farther than we did last time, which I thought was good. I thought this was like, yeah, Sherlock's like, my plan would have worked if she hadn't seen it coming. We just need to be bigger and more dramatic. And so they literally blow up their entire flat. Poor Mrs. Hudson.
I love that Mrs. Hudson is like in on it and okay with it, and she's like, I played my part well.
And they Sherlock looks at the papers, see what they are, and she reveals that she's made a deal, so she needs the papers back, and Sherlock gives it to her, but he also knows she's lying, and he figures the only person who can actually help her is the Lord of Crime, so she's made a deal with them. So he lets her go, but he follows, and while she's getting ready to exchange the papers with Albert, he snatches them away, and he's like, you have to promise me she's going to be okay. I have Scotland Yard surrounding us, which is the street urchins that he uses wearing bobby caps. And William had foreseen this, so Albert hands Sherlock a envelope, and he can't see his face. It's in the shadows. He gives him an envelope. He's like, my identity is in this envelope. If anything ever happens to her, you can read it and expose me and win. And so that's my promise to you that she'll be safe.
Actually,
And-
one thing I appreciated about this scene, he didn't just hand him an envelope and claim, yo, my name's in this. No, he
No,
goes,
you're right.
Irene, write down my name and seal it in that envelope. I thought that was much more convincing as far as like giving him leverage.
Right. And so Irene says goodbye, tells Sherlock she's fine with him. I did definitely ship it, but I always do. So kind of has that pre-set up. And she goes with Albert, and then basically they meet the rest of the group in these secret tunnels. And she's like, oh, the Lord of Crime isn't just a guy, it's an organization. And they're like, yep, that's us. And they go back to their apartment. But then they go to Mycroft, and they reveal everything. Hey, we're the Lord of Crime. We know what you did. We know what's in the paper. We're trying to do a similar thing here in England. This is our plan. What are you going to do about it? And Mycroft is like, okay, well, that makes sense. I do believe you're doing what's best for the country. As long as you stay within parameters and don't get carried away, I'll let you go.
Just kill a lot of people. That's all. That's okay.
Well, I mean, this is a guy who's okay with the French Revolution, and as long
Yeah,
as
that
it
was
served
fair.
its purpose.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I think there's a difference between being okay with hiding something that happened
Yeah,
versus
you're right. You're right.
doing it at the time. But yeah.
He also reveals that the guy who organized the French Revolution was an English person and ended up being a Holmes. And the whole reason he serves the government as he does is to carry the burden of that man, and why they keep the papers too. You know, it's his cross to bear. He doesn't let Sherlock know about it. So he lets them live, and they go back. And so Irene cuts her hair and changes her identity to James Bond. Now, before I go into my rant, does anyone else want to, or do you want me to start?
Go for it.
No, the one thing I would like to say, and don't get me wrong, I actually enjoyed James Bond in this. I thought it was a decent addition to their team, what have you. I think it would have served the story better if she had stayed a woman that could be convincingly dressed as a man, because having those skill sets on a team of subterfuge and manipulation would be tremendous for their organization. So strictly going, I'm now James Bond and James Bond forever, I kind of hurt her skill set and would have been an interesting story to see. But I will say I did enjoy the story that was portrayed.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, because I remember that in the novels and stuff, she was referred to as like having the face of an angel and everything. Like that was one of her super, super effective techniques, was using her femininity and her feminine wiles. Super effective. And so to just give all that up seems like you're hobbling yourself as an agent.
You're right, and Irene Adler's biggest weapon is her sexuality, and that obviously cannot be played into this. And we never see her like trying to seduce a woman either, so it's not like she got to flip it. I agree. This is a silly choice to make. James Bond is from the 1950s. This is the
1800 and like late 1800s. Yeah.
So here's why it works for me, though. I think Irene Adler's character of sexuality and social manipulation flows perfectly into James Bond, who's he's the sexy secret agent. I think that's a fun twist of like, these are the connection between those two characters. So then we have this changeover. She's working for the government right now, unofficially with Mycroft's consent, and then later becomes much more official. And just the way she uses her skill set as an agent, even though she's more of a thief, master of disguise than an assassin. But guys, how many people are in Moriarty's, and I mean M, in his group? There's William, there's Lewis, there's Albert. We get Jack, we get Fred, we get Moran. And 007th would be Irene Adler.
Odd. You're right. I cringe, but you're absolutely right.
So when it happened, I'm like, this is silly. And then I started thinking about it, like, there's a lot of things that are fitting James Bond. And they didn't. It wasn't just a one-off joke either. They stuck to it. They give her the cool car. They give her the cool gadgets.
Q shows up.
Yeah. They even have her order a weird drink that she names after a person. That's a James Bond thing to do. They stuck to the character tropes the whole time, which to me made it work on levels. While it is silly, it wasn't just hey, it's the name James Bond, isn't that funny? It was like, this is the beginning of the legend. And there's a theory, and I'm pretty sure the Daniel Craig movies have ruined it. I think in Spectre you learned the Bond family name, but there used to be a fan theory that everyone who is the 007 moniker gets the code name James Bond. And that's why there's multiple James Bond. Everything is a single continuity, and there's just a different agent who comes into that role. And this could be the beginning of that, the very first 007 whose name was James Bond. And then eventually the Sean Connerys will show up in the 50s after MI6 has
Who was the best?
Further.
Yeah.
Just saying.
How many Sean Connery James Bonds have you seen?
I can confidently say 3, but yeah.
Like I like him. It's just Daniel Craig's the only one that's like a real character. Everyone else is just like, I am a thing that happens to these villains. I bang the ladies, I get the cool gadgets, I save the day, and I never have any problems. Whereas Daniel Craig is like, I'm dealing with PTSD, the love of my life is dead, this all weighs on me, and I want to quit, or I'm getting too old. Like Daniel Craig has problems. Anyway,
I don't know. Goldeneye, he
Wrong
got
discussion.
beat up
Wrong
pretty
discussion. We have to get back to Irene Adler. That's my case. Well, again, it hit me. I was like,
wrong.
that is silly. And then I just started thinking about like, it actually fits these puzzle holes in a lot of weird coincidences. Like the 007 thing is probably a coincidence, but
I don't
it?
know. Yeah, I don't know. That's you've definitely got a point that there are a lot of coincidences, and when you get a lot of coincidences, they're probably not coincidences. And so I got to give you that for sure. I guess I would have been happier if she had been like just pick a different name and then go with James as the middle name. And so she's like, because they all have James as the middle name. James is not their first name.
Right, which is why I assume she picked James. And her reason for picking Bond is super stupid. They have bonds like a family, so I'll be Bond, but with an E for copyright reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering.
I assume that's why. But at least James Bond is a literary character, and but even the Moriarty and M being the same, that was done in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in like the late 90s. That spoilers for that movie. Yeah, they get hired by M, who reveals that at the end that he was actually the villain Moriarty the whole time. He had faked his death with Sherlock, and then founded the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen to sell their powers. Okay, that's the whole plot of.
It has been too long.
I haven't seen that. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Okay. Anyway, I'm just saying that twist that M and Moriarty are the same person isn't even original. And later we're going to talk about not being original.
I was going to say,
it's some plot points.
I was going to say, oh, well, so this is foreshadowing then.
There's a couple of times. Okay, let's keep going. Sherlock is told that Irene is dead, basically through Mycroft. But he also gets bumped into by a man who's like, "Good evening, Sherlock Holmes." And then he goes and reads her letter, and he's like, "Oh, okay, so she's fine." And he burns the envelope with the identity.
I think that's probably one of my favorite things that I kind of cringe at throughout this entire thing is every time the Japanese voice actors do an English line is my favorite.
I love it too.
Catch me if you can. Yeah, because there is now an English dub of the first season, but not of the first half. But it wasn't when we watched it, and there wasn't one for this one, so it's all sub for us in this one.
Woo, elite.
All right, so we're in Victorian London, so this guy's got to show up. We head to Whitechapel for Jack the Ripper storyline because you kind of have to. You just kind of have to.
Hey, at least it fit the setting, right?
Except for Jack the Ripper's real, right? He's not a literary character. He's a historical serial killer.
They wrote about him.
They did. He's been in fiction, but he
certainly did start from.
There really was a Jack the Ripper in London.
Yeah.
So
and in Fate Stay Night, right? Or no?
I'm sure he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
except it wasn't he. But anyways, go on.
And that movie with Johnny Depp.
Where he was like a barber or whatever?
No, that's not.
Oh, okay. I've never watched that, so I don't know what it is.
There was one where he's like a cop, a detective, and he's going after.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Called From Hell.
Oh, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes. Yes.
It's got,
there were prostitutes in that.
Yeah.
Speaking of prostitutes.
And Johnny Depp.
There are dead prostitutes showing up in Whitechapel. So you know what that means. And William reads about it in the newspaper, and he's like, Jack the Ripper. Time to get involved with this. But first we have to deal with James Bond has joined the team, and they're like, hey, go to the men's changing room. And Moran's like, guys, that's not a man. They're like, no, she said she's a man, so it's fine. And he's like, guys, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, so Moran doesn't really like Bond. He's like, I'm not really sure what you're bringing to the team. I don't really get why you're here. And so William was like, guys, I came up with this really tough plan, but I need you to go to the bank and get the safety deposit box for me. All of you go. And I'm passing out because if I think too hard, I fall asleep. which never comes up again. Has never come up before. It's like this one time. Oh, by the way, sometimes I pass out if I think real hard.
Thinking is his kryptonite.
Anyway, so They go to the bank. When they get there, there is a robbery. And so they all spring into action. And Bond is like, wait, what are we doing? What's the plan? She goes up to Miranda.
And then everyone's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she goes up to Miranda. She's like, what are we doing? He's like, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing or what they want to be doing to resolve this. And he kind of talks her through, like, logically, what's the objective here, and figure out how you can help that objective and go freaking do it. I'm not your boss. Be part of the team. Dang it. So she comes up with this plan, which is turn off the lights, and she goes out and through the silhouettes of gunfire is able to take out all the bank robbers, and then says, oh, the cop who's in the bank did it. And that works. And Moran's like, that was a pretty good plan, Bond. Welcome to the team. Want some of my whiskey? Yeah.
Nope, all of it.
And then,
Yeah.
and then Lewis is like, so this was clearly set up by William.
This is a team building exercise.
Yeah, this is a team building exercise. They go home, and there is an old man standing over William who happens to just wake up right then. And he's like, hey, guys, it's Jack the Ripper. And they're like, hey, Jack the Ripper. And so we meet the character Jack the Ripper. Now, this is not the person murdering people in Whitechapel. This is a former butler of theirs that used to be a
Ex-military. Or
ex-military,
Afghan.
yeah. That
Yeah.
was known as Jack the Ripper for how brutal and savage he was in killings. And he had taught them how to kill people as their butler, and was like one of their earliest members of their team, but had retired. But now
Defensive classes.
Yeah.
Now someone is using his moniker, Jack the Ripper, in these murders, so he has come out of retirement to help the team. And so Jack is back. What do you guys think of Jack?
He's great in this arc. And then he, again, like the
He's
other
a
characters,
butler.
kind of get sidelined.
Yeah, he just becomes the butler again.
Yeah, defaults to butler. I did like that. He's definitely a fit old man, but after half an hour of running, he's definitely tired. He's like, I can't keep going, guys. Help.
Yeah. I was very impressed with how seriously they took that too. And he's like, oh man, I'm so happy that this coat is heavy, but at the same time I hate that this coat is heavy because it's getting so difficult to run.
No, he did an hour because they're like,
Yeah, he did an hour.
we need 2 hours,
Oh, that's right.
but you only need to do 1. Because he was
But
like,
he did-
I can only do 30 minutes, and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we need 2, but we'll only make you do 1.
Yeah. Fred will do the other.
Which kind of brings me to my thought of, besides just needing a character named Jack for the connection to the storyline, we already have Lewis who fights with knives. We have Fred who fights with knives.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a role being filled here that he wasn't already filled. And so, and we also had Lewis being the butler. So he's really like this very extra character. I was really surprised. And they're like, we need another member of the team. And anyway, it works for my 007 theory, and that makes me happy. But the character itself is kind of pointless. Besides, we just need someone named Jack to show up.
And we need a 6th person so that we can have a 007.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're they go to Whitechapel. Not Castle. I wrote Castle. Must have been hungry during this
So
episode.
you got to eat before you start running.
Go to White Castle, get some burgers. They go to Whitechapel and they see that the citizens, the vigilante group of this area, does not want Scotland Yard to come in. They're like, these are our people. You don't care about us. We're going to defend ourselves. And so there's this tension brewing between the police force and the citizens. And so William's able to be like, I know what's going on now. This is there's no serial killer out there. This is an organized group that is trying to build tension, and that's what's going on. Meanwhile, Lestrade goes to Sherlock, and he's like, can you help with this? Because my boss said we don't care about Jack the Ripper. We care about these angry citizens, and so I could use some help. And he does a puppet show for Sherlock randomly.
Okay, I like the puppet show. That
did?
caught me off guard, and I thought it was really funny.
Okay. It's just, is that like a common Lestrade thing to do, to bring puppets and be like, Sherlock, here's the case?
I don't think so at all. And I think that's why I liked it, was because, the show had been playing on those 2 tones for me so much. And then all of a sudden there's just this thing out of left field. And the shock of it was just, I started laughing when I realized it was actually a real puppet show and not just a stylistic representation for the audience.
So William basically is like, hey, there's an organization we have to stop. So what we're going to do is we're going to run an experiment on our own plan that we're trying to get to. We're going to use this as an experiment. And they basically have Jack be the Jack the Ripper. They bring corpses in, pretend like he just murdered some prostitutes. And that way Scotland Yard and these citizens team up together to stop him. So they're all chasing him through Whitechapel. And that's the thing we talked about where like you have to run for so long. They eventually bring out a Gatling gun to stop him. And Jeremy, do you want to talk about the scene?
I hate this scene. I hate this scene so much. Oh, it burns. It burns. Physics are defied so badly in this scene. Okay, so to stop the Gatling gun, what we've seen happen so far is that Moran, being an excellent shot and using some special weapons that he gets from Q, has been shooting guns to make them jam, which, fine, okay, cool. In order to stop the Gatling gun, he needs to shoot something down the barrel of the Gatling gun. And of course, a Gatling gun it's got multiple barrels arranged in that ring formation, and he can't get to it from where they are. And so Bond tells him, I got an idea. And so she takes off running and follow me. And so she's running across the building above this Gatling gun, and she pulls a coin out of her pocket. And she flicks the coin in the air and then kicks it with her shoe. And the coin flies down towards the Gatling gun. And everything up to this point, I'm like, okay, I got you. He's going to shoot the coin because he's an amazing shot, and the coin is going to go inside, and it's going to jam up the works, and it's going to mess up the Gatling gun. But no, the camera literally zooms in as the coin is turning slowly. Everything slows down, and the bullet hits the coin, and the bullet ricochets off the coin in midair into the barrel of the Gatling gun. Oh my God, this irked me so bad. Now, you may not think that this matters, but like, it's a display that physics doesn't work in this world. Physics doesn't work because the momentum and the mass and the velocity, everything that bullet had when it struck that coin, should have just gone right through the coin, flicked the coin around somewhere at most.
You know what's better, Jeremy? That he had this long barrel, really accurate rifle, but at this moment he pulls out
the pistol.
Oh my God, you're right.
And he shoots this impossibly long shot
Yes.
of a coin with his pistol.
Yes.
So, for the record, no problem with it. I don't care.
Oh, I hate it.
You're absolutely right. Can't happen. Not only even if it could happen, of course there's the whole accuracy, but just the fact that like at worst the coin should have flew into a cop's brain and like taken him out. Hey, we created a new projectile.
My biggest problem with the scene is that they pulled out a Gatling gun. This is something that the military would have. There's no way they have access to this piece of equipment in this area of the city. But besides that, I loved this scene, even though it was completely impossible.
All right, so Fred takes over as Jack. He puts on a wig and a coat and gives the real Jack a break, and he starts the running. Meanwhile, William and Simon. Nope. God damn.
Yes! Yes!
Woo!
Yes!
I'm literally looking at the name Lewis on the show notes, and my brain said, no, remember, it's wrong. And then my brain said, no, wait, that's not the one that's wrong. Okay. Lewis, they go and they find the organizers behind this plot, except for the mastermind who's off in a dark room watching it from afar. And they're like, hey, by the way, we're the Lord of Crime. Quit telling people that.
No.
And they're like, well, if you're the Lord of Crime, you get what we're trying to do. We're trying to start a revolution like you. We want the police and the citizens to fight and start a revolution. And they're like, yeah, but you murdered innocent people to do it. And they're like, what's a few lies for a revolution? So you don't mind if we kill you, right? Following your logic. And then they do kill them. A couple guys get away. And William's like, oh, yeah, we knew they would. And we put a fuse. What do you think's faster? Them running with this fuse. And he lights it and they blow up. And he kills them. And specifically to leave their bodies out for Sherlock to find.
How did he know which room they were going to be meeting in? And
Thank you.
Pre-plant this fuse. But anyways.
Thank you. Yep, I absolutely hate the constant announcing of we are the Lord of Crime. It takes away the subtlety of being the Lord of Crime. Like, you don't get satisfaction from announcing that if you really are the Lord of Crime. You get the satisfaction from having your crime succeed, and then the fuse on top of that. I was just like, really didn't like this whole scene.
Most of the ones they've announced it to, I've been okay with. Like Mycroft had a purpose behind it. Let's get some government backing on this. But this, like, there's no reason to tell them. They're all going to be dead. You just wanted to say it out loud. You just wanted to hear the words. Yeah.
It's a so cool moment.
So this man watching is Charles Milverton, and he actually sees William's face because a gust of wind blows his hood back. Charles Milverton is a classic Sherlock Holmes villain. You guys' thoughts on him in this series?
Besides him, like, demonizing the media because he's the head of the local, or like a bunch of media organizations, I couldn't stand this character because he was just evil for the sake of evil, and I like blackmailing people. It felt very one-dimensional. There wasn't really anything to him except, I'm going to be bad for the sake of the plot. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, we already have a bad guy, but sure. Come on in.
Dare you, 19th century villain, not be fully three-dimensional.
Well, the rest of the characters all have decent.
Yeah, I'm joking. Yeah. It's a fair analysis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't remember, and I don't know if I ever read a book with Charles Milverton in it. So I read a little bit in Wikipedia about the character from the original books, but I still don't really know if there was much more than that to the character. He was just a big blackmailer that wanted to make a lot of money, from what I understand, and would get real pissed off if you didn't want to pay him. And so he would like hike his prices up in order to destroy you and make an example out of you. So I think it at least is consistent with the type of character that existed in the original. But yeah, he pales in comparison to like William and any of the other characters. But I kind of liked the element of this evil exists in the world and has no guiding compass, no end noble purpose. So now we've got this juxtaposition for William's evil. And William even calls that out when he's like the necessary evil versus the pure evil. And I liked that. So for the purposes of contrasting William with something else, I did like him. But otherwise, I don't know. Overall, I think I probably liked him more than I disliked him.
I think you're right, Jason, about him being pretty simple and shallow. Regardless of whether he's true to the original, because everyone else got to be fleshed out. But one of the big complaints we had about William in the first part, and I think has kind of carried over, is that there's not really a foil to him. Like, there's Sherlock now, but even Sherlock, he's got playing out of the palm of his hand. Sherlock even calls that out. There's nothing slowing William down at all. Charles is the only one who gives him his first loss. And I really like the idea of it. And again, I know this character from the BBC television show. That's how my introduction to him, and him being brought up as like, this is the next Moriarty, because Moriarty was out of the show at that point, and they're like, here's the next big bad of the show. So I like the idea that he's the antagonist to Moriarty in this, and I kind of wish they'd brought him in earlier, because it was nice to see someone that William couldn't just outthink. That actually he beats William in a plot, and that was nice to see. And I think the show needed desperately, because after he's gone, I thought it was gonna be Albert, but there's no antagonist. There's just not one, except for rich people, which fine, but it's not compelling in a character-driven story. We needed an antagonist, and we didn't get one till this moment. Yeah, he's simple, but at least we have something. And I kind of wish he'd been around longer, rather than these last two arcs. All right. So they leave these bodies for Sherlock to find, with the intention of Sherlock will know what happened, and will he tell the truth and kind of make things worse for society, or will he lie but create a bad situation for the police? And Sherlock sees everything and does the lie. Oh, Jack the Ripper did all of this, and he's still at large. So, and I really like this next episode because it carries the Jack the Ripper storyline, but it isn't about a serial killer. I like that this wasn't about a serial killer, which I thought would be more generic. So Scotland Yard arrests a man for being Jack the Ripper, and of course everyone knows that was involved. This isn't true. They've arrested an innocent man. So William decides to get his group involved. We meet the cop that is on the inside for them named Patterson. And he's working with Lestrade, and they're talking about how like the chief faked this arrest, and if we could get his ledger, we could prove this. This is all manipulation by William behind the scenes. And they want to get Sherlock involved. Sherlock wants to get involved because this is kind of his fault. He led to this, and we get this cool story about Bond. We get Bond working with Patterson. We get the strange drink order, and I'm gonna call this a Patterson, and then getting herself thrown into the drunk tank so that she'll be in the jail. And so the plan ends up being she sneaks in, gets the ledger, and then when Sherlock and Lestrade try to sneak in and get the chief all mad, she runs out to go get help in police uniform and uses that to get the ledger. They give the ledger to Lestrade. He's able to prove that the chief was bad. And then Patterson gets promoted to chief because Lestrade didn't want it. He wants to keep inspecting. All this time, Sherlock is very frustrated because he knows every move he's making was calculated for him pre-hand, but he doesn't have any choices here. He has to do these things. It's the right thing to do, but he hates that he's playing to someone else's plan. Did I cover it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Bond gets a sleeping gun and like one of the first automobiles ever.
Yeah, this is where we get the Q scene where Q's like demonstrating how to use the different pieces of equipment.
Who again is not Q. It is actually a character from Sherlock Holmes lore, but is also, and I think that's creative, making a character who's like, oh, that's kind of the same character twice, isn't it? Why don't we just kind of make it work for both?
Uh-huh.
What's his name? Hernandez or
Herder?
Herder.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, then we get episode 18 is basically a flashback of another story from William's childhood, helping orphans from a guy who swindled them by threatening to cut off a pound of flesh through legal means. But then we find out it's all just Charles Milverton doing his research on William and figuring out who he is and what his plan is. But Jason, this was your favorite episode, right?
Yeah, and it's mainly because of the psychological ability of William at this age, because we get a good amount of that in the first half, and this is the first time we get a really decent piece of his childhood where he's outwitting parents around him. But he does it in a way where it's like when you order your steak, you don't say minus the blood, do you? So time to pay up, as he pulls out a knife. The contract that the dude's not paying says if I don't pay, I have to give 1 pound of flesh, which is a Shakespearean reference.
Right.
Yeah, I love it, and I think what was funny is like at the end of this like string of questioning and logic, the judge is like, yeah, I don't see a problem with any of this.
Yeah, that was my favorite part about that, was that the judge was always like, it sounds legal. Contractual obligation you got there.
Right? I mean, you signed it.
Yep.
There's precedent.
Yeah.
All right. So then we come to episode 19 and 20. Do you guys like the movie The Dark Knight from 2008? I watched these two episodes, and at first I was like, and it was the moment William turns to Albert and says, do you think we can trust him? He doesn't say those exact words, but basically he's asking, can we trust him? And I'm like, wait, are they just doing The Dark Knight, but like not as good? Do they know they're doing that? And then it comes to a point where they literally turn their character into a Two-Face, and I'm like,
yeah.
So this is The Dark Knight from 2008, which, by the way, I love the movie. but is it big in Japan? Is it ripe for homage right now? It's such a weird out of nowhere, like, hey, we're gonna do a Dark Knight homage in this series. So it blew my mind. I tweeted about it. I wasn't able to think about anything else all day. I just sat there thinking about like the animators like watching the Dark Knight a lot. Is it like their favorite movie? And they're like, guys, we have to do Dark Knight in anime. This is our chance.
Well, I mean, it's a fictional character. They could add another fictional character.
He is Bruce Wayne E.
Yeah, exactly.
So the story is there is this politician, and his name is literally Whiteley, the White Knight of modern society. they call him that. Okay, I can do this. He is trying to pass a bill so that commoners get to vote, right? And so the Moriartys are like, oh, this guy could bring about the revolution, the change we've been wanting through peaceful, not horrific ways like we've been doing. We could be done. And let's see if we can help this guy. They do some test on him. Like they go to a park to see if he's legit. He says he's like this really good judge of character. And I was thinking like, the Dark Knight did this, but they showed that Harvey Dent had like a dark side to him too at the same time. They're not really doing that. This isn't done as well. Lily was having those thoughts, not really getting how deep we were going to go. He has a brother in a wheelchair, so a lot of what he does is to help wheelchair kids. The other politicians are betraying him. They're like, oh, this guy sucks. He slowed down the building of the park. Well, he did it so that he can make sure it was level so wheelchair kids could come in. But he doesn't even tell anyone that.
That is what I hated about that scene, is because there was absolutely no reason for him to withhold that information unless he wanted to take the assault, basically, to take the bad name, to be a martyr for it.
No, I disagree, because that was a very political thing to do when you're in a corner. You don't try and refute, because you dig yourself further into a hole in the public opinion. You apologize fast and you get out of it fast. That's the best way to keep public opinion about you.
I think that's what's been accepted, but I don't think it works.
Right, but it was the best, in my opinion, it was the best political move he could have made in that moment, because he had 6 politicians behind him.
No talking about politics, guys.
Not even when it's in the fiction?
Oh,
I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about
I'm
political strategy.
I should mention there was also a bombing, and so Albert comes to him and is like, hey, here's the proof that the House of Lords that I'm with was behind your bombing, and you can use this basically to blackmail them to get what you want. And William's like, we're giving him a lot of power. I hope we can trust him. He also keeps getting there's the bomber is killed by a police officer. The police officer is killed by this giant hulk of a man with a metal helmet and glowing eyes.
He's basically a golem. Like, I don't know what is going on with that character, but the fact that his eyes glow and like everything he does, he slams through walls like they're nobody's business. Like, he is just a beast. Never talks, never does anything other than just destroy things. And he's shirtless. He's just a pair of pants and a helmet that covers half of his face.
Guys, it's the first iteration of Bane.
Actually, it is.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah.
Who's the knife kid? Huh. I that you're absolutely correct, and I hate it. All right. So he goes to blackmail the House of Lords, and they send Charles Milverton to represent them, who's already been bad-mouthing this guy in the press anyway. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's what you want to do. And he's like, I have 2 demands: that you don't block my bill, so we can get this passed and I can get regular people voting, and you don't hurt my family. He's like, oh, okay, I'll let them know. We'll just see about that. I'm just a representative. And then he leaves, and Charles Milverton's like, oh, he's trying to blackmail me? I'm the blackmail king. And he sends his goons, and Fred is bodyguarding from across the street, but the goons attack Fred. So then the wheelchair little brother starts finding people murdered in his home, and then a man with a knife attacks him. The White Knight gets home. Everyone's murdered. His his son, or his little brother, not son, little brother is murdered on the floor in front of him, and the inspector that he personally hired as their protector, that he chose from the police force, was blackmailed into murdering them to save his own family. And he's like, "Here's the knife. Kill me. I've done my part. Get justice for yourself." And he brings out the knife. And he's like, "No, I can't do it." He slams the knife down. And then he's like, "Yeah, actually, I can." And he just guts the guy in the head. And blood splashes all over him, but only on the right half. And he's completely blood soaked. So clearly, you guys agree. This is homage, not.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we can sneak this in.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Nearly an 1800s retelling.
Yeah.
So now William has the same problem Batman and Commissioner Gordon had in 2008's The Dark Knight, and I do have to keep pointing out the year because it boggles me. If people find out that, well, his thing is, hey, my bill will never pass now that they know I murdered a police officer, and they're like, well, our guy, everything we pinned our hopes on won't work now that he's been corrupted. And Milverton's like, oh, I created a new villain, but he's not crazy like Two-Face is. He's like literally goes to them. He's like, hey guys, sorry I did this. Here's your evidence back. I ruined everything, and I feel real bad about it. William's like, well, if you're willing to die, have we got a plan for you? And they do the end of The Dark Knight. They murder him in front of everybody. He's like, hi everybody, and William jumps out and murders him, and then Batman Harp literally pulls out a Batman grappling gun and flies up to the church, and he's like, I'm the bad guy. I killed his family and the police officer and him. I am the Lord of Crime, and I'm a super killer, and I'm the hero the city needs. And then he flies away, and he doesn't come back until Catwoman and Bane shows up.
Yes.
And that's the end of the Whiteley storyline.
I was fond of those two characters, more the politician than the little brother, because the little brother was just there to get sympathy for the politician.
Right.
But this whole arc with these characters just taken as a whole, I'm really really not fond of. Just for all the things you mentioned, simply because it just kind of took the story in a weird way. But I think the biggest thing that bugged me was that moment when Milverton said the birth of a new villain, and then nothing happened.
Right, he didn't go the full
nothing
crazy.
Yeah, it was like the writers were thinking that they were going to go one way with it, and then they just decided not to. Yeah,
I would think it was like episode. We have like 5 minutes left in this episode. If he starts running around crazy, we're not gonna have time for William to do this. We need him to like come in, confess, and be like, "Hey, I'm in on the plan. Whatever you want."
Yeah, I kind of wish they just removed that birth of a villain part of the monologue. Keep the rest, but just dump that little chunk, and I think it would have made more sense.
I do love that he's sitting on that bench and he looks up at him and he's just got the red on one.
Yeah, it's Two-Face. Yes, I'm surprised he didn't start flipping a coin.
That's Bond's job.
That's Bond. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All right. Moving on, but I don't think that'll never not get a chuckle out of me. I went online and was like, please someone like have the backstory of like why the studio did this, like where this came from, where this idea started from, and everyone was just like, oh, I loved Whiteley and the brother was cute. And
yeah.
I guess no one wants to talk about that. We just did a retelling of 2008's The Dark Knight.
Maybe the people watching it are too young to have watched 2008 The Dark Knight. I don't know.
They need to go watch it. It is one of the
really
greatest superhero movies of all time.
Yeah.
Except for the voice. Guys, I love Nolan's Batman's, but the voice, I can't handle it. There's
a great YouTube video where the guy makes fun of it. I love it.
The Batman videos are.
I love those.
And just like Weird Al songs ruin like regular songs when they come on the radio. Now I watch Batman and I'm like, Harvey Dent, can't we trust him? Okay, we gotta get back on track. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Gordon, where'd you go?
Sorry, that's it. That's all I had to get to.
Do check out Pete Holmes' Badman
Oh, you
videos.
gotta.
They are classic. All
Gotta.
right. Watson brings his fiance Mary to meet Sherlock. This is classic Sherlock Holmes, and this is right on schedule with the Milverton character too. I believe that they are. This is at least in the BBC. So these two stories were connected, which I appreciate. I appreciate how this connected into the final problem. I thought that was well strung through. Anyway. And Sherlock's like, oh, thank you for bringing her to meet me, but she's clearly here to ask me to do a case. And I was like, or Watson's like, no. She's like, yeah, I am. So she has been getting these pearls like once a year in the mail, and her father disappeared once upon a time, and she thinks the two are related, and she wants him to investigate what happened to my dad. The short version, there was a treasure. A bunch of men found it together in India, brought it over illegally. One of the guys kept it, got in a fight with her father, accidentally killed him, asked his son, I'm revealing all the things that Sherlock will eventually find out, asked his sons to send her share. Did they lose the treasure? Or why were they
sending where it was?
Okay.
The father died before he could tell them exactly where it was.
So why were they sending one pearl at a time? I was taking a note.
It was the only necklace
they had
they
that big necklace.
Okay. All right. So, and when they get to the house, they find signs of a break-in, especially from a man with a peg leg. And the story of this man is that, hey, he once attacked a guy with a peg leg, but it was the wrong guy. Also, one of my favorite things shows up in the story. So, but while they're investigating, Mary keeps being like, "Oh, the treasure is real," and like the guys know, and Sherlock's like, "Okay, this is clearly not what it seems to be." So she's keeping more secrets. What's going on here? And so they have to go after these guys with the treasure, and they're like, "Well, they stepped in something smelly, and let me introduce you to Toby." I don't know if anyone else is a fan of old Disney movies, but The Great Mouse Detective was one of my favorites as a kid. And they rode Toby the dog, who was Sherlock's dog, but because he was the mouse who lived under Sherlock and also solved cases. And Toby was like their car. So I love Toby. It's like childhood nostalgia hit, like, oh, Toby. Anyway, who's just like this little pathetic basset hound who has a really good nose that Sherlock likes to use on cases. So they track down the boat, and they're like, okay, Mary, you have to go home now. This is dangerous. And she's like, oh, maybe I don't have to. They're like, no, you do.
Go now.
They end up in a boat chase with these bad guys. And instead of getting captured, the guys dump the last remaining guy after the other guy gets shot, dumps the treasure into the Thames River.
This was all the synchronized movement, and then they shoot both his shoulders at the same time. That was pretty rad.
Very skillful.
This is all part of Sherlock's plan because he doesn't want Mary to have the treasure to reveal what's going on with her. So he pushed these guys into a corner where he knew they would dump the treasure. So when they go and tell Mary, she's obviously very upset. And Sherlock's like, okay, I get what's going on. You're being blackmailed. And the only person who would do that would be the king of blackmail, Charles Milverton.
How does he know that Charles Milverton is the king of blackmail? Like, is that something that Sherlock just always intrinsically knew in the stories? I would have assumed he'd have to figure it out.
It was a well-known fact within the skeevier parts of the city.
But it's not a crime you can prove because he controls the media and so much other things. Like, he's protected. But yes.
I mean, he even knows where he keeps his documents. Like, where he keeps the evidence. No investigation. Just, oh yeah, he keeps it over here in this castle overlooking the water.
Mary reveals that while she was in France, she might have hooked up with some terrorists/revolutionaries and handed out pamphlets, but would definitely be on their register, and that's what Charles is blackmailing with her so to ruin her wedding. But this is all really a scheme to get to Sherlock, and he actually arrives at the apartment right then. He's like, see, I definitely have proof that she was a terrorist. But this is only a copy. And so he leaves, and Sherlock's like, okay. He demands the treasure, and Sherlock's like, well, we can't get that, so I will go to his place, and I will steal the evidence for you, and I'll take care of all this, don't worry. Watson's like, dude, you're not doing this without me. This is literally my fiance. This has everything to do with me, and we're partners. What are you thinking? You're just going to do this by yourself. So they go. When they get there, in this dark what seems like an abandoned house, there's gunshots going off, and Sherlock kind of realizes a lot of things at once. What's going on? He's like, "Hey, Watson, you should go get the cops, and I'll just wait here. I promise." So Watson leaves. He goes, and Sherlock goes inside, sneaks onto the upper floor, and he finds Charles Milverton at gunpoint. The person holding the gun is William Moriarty, who has declared, Charles is our big enemy.
I did like that Sherlock just happened to have a grappling hook with him. That was pretty.
Yeah, in his bag, his nice little bag.
Classic burgling equipment,
Right. Just happened to have it.
It's not as good a grappling hook as what William has, though.
Right. Well, he has Q though, so
that's true.
So Milverton reveals his big plan here, which is, ha, if I die, then William Moriarty will be revealed as the Lord of the Crime in the press. And if you don't arrest him, Sherlock, I will ruin your best friend's wedding. And Sherlock's like, man, you're really smart. That was really clever, but you didn't figure out that I'm actually willing to murder people. And him and William turn his gun on him, and it shows a gun going off, and it's only Sherlock's gun. Sherlock shoots. He tries to run away, but he shoots him in the back, and he falls into the ocean.
Empties his gun into him.
Yeah,
yeah.
Bullet after bullet.
And Sherlock turns to William, and he's like, first off, I knew it was you. I wanted it to be you. I'm so glad it's you, which I don't like. I'll explain why in a minute when we get to another scene. But then he's like, and I know you didn't want me to do that. I know that ruins your plan, but I'm sick of being part of your plan. I'll do whatever I want. You can't predict me. And then William's like, well, I guess I'll say what I always say is catch me if you can. And so there's mercenaries fighting with the good guys downstairs, and they all run off. Sherlock sets the house on fire. He goes outside. Watson comes out with the police, and he's like, hey, guys, I just murdered Charles Milverton. I'm under arrest. And he is. And then William is like, I think I messed up. Sherlock wasn't supposed to be a killer yet. Which this didn't really pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was like, I'm so worried Sherlock's going to kill me, but you've already agreed. He agreed, like, I'm fine with my name being revealed. That was the next part of my plan anyway. So he acts like, oh, my timetable got upset, but he kind of seems like it's right on course still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he always intended for Sherlock to kill him.
Right.
So, like, I'm afraid he's going to do what I wanted him to do, but it's his choice.
But not really.
But not really.
So, because this is going to be revealed that William is the Lord of Crime, he goes on a murder spree killing nobles and takes credit for it. He's like, hey, guys, it's me, your homeboy, William Moriarty. I'm murdering people I'm killing nobles across London. Catch me if you can. You can't because I'm awesome. And does this knowing that, Albert gets in trouble with the House of Lords. They're like, oh, it was your brother. How could you let this happen? People are attacking or surrounding. A mob surrounds his home. Meanwhile, Sherlock is in jail, and Mycroft comes in. He's like, you idiot, you committed the perfect crime. Besides your confession that you killed him, there's no way to tell you killed this guy. There's no evidence. Everything burned down. There's no body recovered. They literally can't even prove you did anything. And then John comes in.
He's disappointed by this, by the way, too. He's like, you couldn't find the body? Are you kidding?
John comes in, and this I didn't think this was important as it ended up being, but he comes in and he's like, you did this for me, but you didn't think about how it would affect me. And this is the Sherlock's arc that will become part of William's arc, right? Is you're willing to die to fix things, but what about the people that will affect and the long term? You think your life is a expendable value to solve equations, but it's not, because there's other people in your life. It really gives them the business about it. Very classic Watson. Cries too.
It reminded me of the when Subaru was forced to watch the aftermath of his deaths. Really reminded me of that. Like, you got to think about the people you're leaving behind.
So everyone's kind of getting ready for this final plan, and Fred is out with William, kind of help. He knocks out like guards so that they don't have to get killed while he kills the noble, and then Fred is like, "Hey man, I kind of didn't want you to take the sins on alone. We all thought we would all be punished together. We were all in this together." And William explains about this is where I felt the crimes of everything you do. I don't think a person should kill another person even for the greater good. I don't believe in what I'm doing is okay, and I felt the guilt of all of it, but I just thought we had to do it, and so I kind of want to be dead. And Fred's like, that ain't cool. So he goes and writes a letter to Sherlock asking for help, and Lewis catches him.
Not Simon.
Nice.
And Lewis is like, "Hey, what you doing? I'm in. I feel that way too." He had even said, like, "Can we all just run away?" And everyone's like, "Dude, like, this was the plan." And then we keep getting dialogue from Lewis of like, I knew this was the plan, but I guess I just didn't believe this was the plan."
Yeah.
We get a scene of William murdering this noble in front of his two children, and like the son trying to protect his father and vowing vengeance against William. It doesn't pay off.
Well, and that's
important.
yeah, this scene, there was one thing about it that kind of frustrated me, and that was that Sherlock, William, these guys are like, oh, the thing they learn at the end is, worry about the people that you're leaving behind. It's important that you stay alive because if you die, it hurts these other people, right? But this kid is trying to stop his dad from dying. The atrocities the dad has done, I wonder if they compare to the atrocities that William has done, as far as like all of the secondhand people that he's harmed. Every time he kills someone, that person has kids, that person has parents, that person has friends, they have family members. What about all the people that they're leaving behind, right? Now, obviously, in some cases, they were such caricatures of villains that I even agree that they probably should not be alive, much less in authority. But if the concept that we're supposed to learn here is that, even if you have committed horrible atrocities, like William freely admits that he has, you shouldn't die because it will hurt the people around you, then how does that not apply to all of these people as well? And I think that's what this scene demonstrates.
I like that. I do. Then we get a scene of Sherlock Holmes studying William's life. And he puts together, okay, the three brothers are actually the true Lord of Crime together and all this stuff. And I had mentioned earlier I was frustrated when he said, I hoped it was you. I wanted to be you. I knew it was you. How come he didn't study his life before? If you're like, I'm pretty sure it's this guy, maybe I should do some research into him. Instead, he's like, until I can fully prove it, I refuse to look at a single old newspaper with his name in it. Because he probably would have gotten it all figured out if he went off the suspicion it's him. I should investigate further because clearly that evidence exists. Because once he knew the name, I also didn't like that Sherlock had to be just told the name. Hey, by the way, it's this guy. I've solved it for you, Sherlock, you idiot.
Mm-hmm.
That bothers me. It's like an itch I can't scratch. I don't like it.
I was really hoping that he would have been smoking in the scene and Watson would have come in and like he would have gone to explain it, but with weird eyes and like going.
yeah. It would have been cool to even get once.
The meme?
A cool description.
Okay.
Oh, you're doing the Charlie Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Philadelphia.
Because of the strings. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. No, it would have been really cool because that was one of the things that Sherlock was always known for, is the big reveal where he would go on to lay out all the reasons why he came to the conclusions he did. And we don't really ever get that with this Sherlock.
Right. The only thing we get from this Sherlock, I think, in the end is, and it's the scene that happens next. He takes William's plan and he makes it better. And that happens because the Queen calls for Sherlock, pardons him, and says, please stop the Lord of Crime. And he makes a deal. The deal is they won't, the Queen will stop overseeing the House of Lords, or the House of Lords will stop having power. I'm not fully sure what
equal.
Yeah, House of Lords will become equal to the House of Commons, I believe it was.
Okay.
As far as power.
Right.
2 chambers
Which-
of Congress or whatever.
Which,
Parliament.
so I like that they do this. I do like that Sherlock in that prison scene, he's like, okay, I see the full plan. I see everything William has done and everything he's going to do. I now get the full picture. I'm on even footing with him, and then says, I can make your plan better with my resources, who I am, and I can take you up a notch. And he does, because honestly, William's plan is a little stupid, and we'll get to that. So this actually mattered in the long run compared to anything Williams ends up doing. So I do like that they give Sherlock this moment. But other than that, yeah, there's not any like, hey, I knew this the whole time, and I actually got one step ahead of you. This is the only thing he really out Sherlock's William on. William later says, "Oh, you bested me, but why? Because I chose friendship, William." That's not really besting you. Now, look, I'm okay with them being friends. I we'll get to there and we'll argue about it. But
I'm okay with that too.
That's not besting him.
Yes. No, I'm okay with that as well. It's the whole concept that how did Sherlock suddenly, like, it was like a collage of memories where we got snapshots of scenes that just kind of flashed through Sherlock's mind, and now all of a sudden Sherlock is able to fix everything and make everything better, and it just felt very shallow because of that. I was not able to actually suspend my disbelief and believe that Sherlock was justified in suddenly fixing and making the plan better and solving everything.
I do, because I think it's hard to show Sherlock processing stuff. They just try to do it symbolically with, hey, I grasped the red thread, which is the truth of the plan, right? But it's not like as good as BBC Sherlock, where they do the words popping up and actually go through all this stuff. It's definitely a subpar version of him solving it, but I do think, and we don't know how long he's been sitting in that jail cell. It's an indeterminate amount of time.
Yeah,
I was fine with it.
Do you think, like, looking back at all the things that he solved, does it seem like he is presented as an intelligent enough and problem-solving enough Sherlock to have actually solved it? Because, like, even that first thing with Irene Adler, where he was like, how do you know about this picture and who's the person that she's in the picture with or whatever? And it was something so simple that Watson is the one that actually told him, oh, it's the paper, it's expensive. Oh, it's this. I don't think there was even a single thing in that Sherlock pointed out that Watson didn't know.
Right. Honestly, no, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because his name is Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
But in this story, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Jason, you?
There were plenty of times where he was like, he would kind of lay it out like smaller subplots. But he kept a lot of stuff close to the chest until he was ready to reveal it, instead of, hey, I've had this revelation, listen to this, and kind of spelled it out for the audience. So it was a different take and a different style. I don't know. It was like a different flavor of ice cream. I liked it.
So after he returns home, and then he gets a note from Fred and Lewis, and he goes outside. I actually wrote Lewis here. Goes outside with them, and they're like, hey, please help William. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to. And they're like, oh, why? He's like, because he's my friend. He's like, leave it to me. I'm
Even though we've only met like 3 times.
I know.
And then late at night,
the
William.
Gaze. We were transfixed by each other's gaze. That's in the song too.
We have that to argue about, but we gotta wait. Let's wait till the end. Let's wait till the end. William comes to his apartment, gives him a note that says, hey, here's a time and a place, be there. And Sherlock's, hey, why'd you choose me? And he's like, I can't tell you, I gotta go. And he leaves. Sherlock like, hey, Watson, come with me. And Watson's like, nope, this is you helping your friend. I'm not getting involved. Yeah, and so then Alfred and Moran set the house on fire, and this leads to the true culmination of William's plan, which is to start a fire among the common people of London that would force the nobles and the rich people to help with.
Like, why wouldn't they help anyways, right? Like, the poor people are the people that are employed to do the jobs that keep the rich people wealthy. So if they let the poor people's homes burn down, and if they let all of the industrial places burn down, they're going to lose money too. They would be out there due to their noble obligation and for their own well-being. They would not ignore this.
Which, yeah. So in the anime, Moran, pretending to be a commoner, goes to the nobles who are, no, you can't have access to the river. We're having a party here. And he's like, hey, you guys are nobles. You have, this is kind of your responsibility, blah, 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 blah. Basically saying everything Jeremy just said, but reminding them, and they're like, oh, you're right. We should help. And they do. I 100% agree with you, Jeremy, that they would help. And I also feel 100% that the next day they would lock the gate again and be like, bye, poor people.
Yeah.
Back to your burned homes. We don't care.
Yes. We solved the problem.
I
Moving
don't see
on.
this. This is set up as like, once they fight a fire together, everyone will be equal. And I'm like, you don't know rich people very well. They love to give charity to help people, but they don't actually care the next day.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah. So also the idea that of, hey, I'll just become a villain for everybody and that will unite and bring peace was done in another anime called Lelouch and the Rebellion. Spoilers for that anime. It's the exact same ending for Lelouch.
What?
You haven't seen, look, guys, that's like a 30-year-old anime. Come on.
I didn't see it.
Okay, the end of Lelouch is after he leads this rebellion. Because he's a prince, technically, he takes the throne and makes himself the most evil villain of all time. So the whole world hates him, and then they assassinate him, and the world goes into peace. And that was his plan the whole time. All I'm saying is, and that's not the only anime ever to do it either. This is a well-worn trope, and it's just. This is supposed to be Moriarty with the ultimate plan that we took 24 episodes, well, 23, 24 episodes to get to. And it was, what if I do that thing the other animes have already done?
Yeah. And what if it's really unbelievable?
And it has nothing to do with the French Revolution.
Yeah.
And he wants Sherlock to kill him.
Yes.
Because they're friends.
It's just...
So,
it's a
Sherlock
big whip.
goes to meet Batman. I mean Moriarty.
Yes.
Well, okay, so first he gets all of his plans. Jack gives Sherlock all his plans and the letter that was like, hey, I chose you because you were my friend. You were the only person who is as smart as me. We understood each other. I was like the only time I actually felt like a human being again was around you. We would have been friends in another world. And Sherlock's that's how I felt. You freaking idiot. We could have been friends. And I buy that Sherlock Holmes and James Moriarty, if James Moriarty is not an evil villain, would be friends, rivalry friends. They've always had very much a respect. Any versions I've seen have had respect for each other's intelligence, so I can understand without that animosity of I'm evil, you're good. That isn't actually in this one. That they would actually be honest and earnest friends. So I totally bought it. I wish we had more than just the 2 episodes where they've met to kind of grow that a little bit. Those 2 episodes, I do think did a good job of when they're around each other. They clearly enjoy each other's company and have fun doing mysteries together and stuff. But more than 2 probably would have been nice.
Given that there's 24 episodes.
Yeah.
And that this is a major plot point that the whole logic of the final scene hinges on. Yeah, I think it needed more weight behind it.
So the London comes together. They stop the fires. William sets off a firework, so everyone looks at the unfinished Tower Bridge, and Sherlock goes there to meet William. And William's like, "Okay, this is the part where you kill me," and he's like attacking Sherlock. Well, Sherlock's like, "Please don't die. You're my friend. Please don't do this. Don't run away. You can start. Yeah, you've done horrible things, but we can find redemption. Nothing's over." William basically jumps off to commit suicide. Sherlock catches him. He pulls out his sword and cuts Sherlock and falls anyway. So Sherlock dives in and grabs him, and they fall together. With Sherlock whispering, "Let's live."
Yes. Okay, everything about like the fall and how the difference between that and the book version, where they're struggling in a fight and they're falling off because they're fighting. Now they're falling off because Sherlock's trying to save him, trying to get him to not die. I like that.
Yeah.
But the embrace and like the cuddle and the cradling of the back of his head as he whispers that, I'm like, it doesn't fit. Like it's a little bit too intimate for the relationship that these characters have.
I think
Did we just become best friends?
I think it's a wink.
Friendly best friend.
I'm sure these two characters have their shippers, and it felt like very much like a wink to them without crossing the line of actually saying there's a romance here. But it's fine. But the only thing when I watched this was like, it must be hard to tell an original story that has to go to an end. You have to end this with Sherlock and William falling off something together. It's not even the right location. I thought it was weird they chose a bridge, but they have to fall together. So like when William jumps alone, I was like, oh, whoa, that's a twist. And then Sherlock went with him. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I appreciated the way they managed to evolve this and make it original while still hitting that story beat you have to hit. That, Sherlock's actually there trying to save him.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, from that high up, there's a good possibility they die anyways.
Especially since they're going head first.
Well, right. In the actual Sherlock story, they do die, and then Conan O'Doyle was forced to bring Sherlock Holmes back to life, and was like, he actually survived it. And the way he wrote stories, it's all from Watson's point of view, and Watson wasn't there, so he basically gets there. There's a letter from Sherlock saying, "Hey, I'm going to die fighting James Moriarty." He sees footprints on the ground and clear signs that they went over the falls, and that's how it's done in the books. Like, you never actually saw the fight or how it went down. It's all very third person.
Well, fortunately for Sherlock and Moriarty, physics don't work in this world.
That's right.
Because both of them survive.
William has a grappling hook that can go really far.
It can.
Okay, so then we come to the epilogue. Albert uses most of his money to help rebuild, donated through anonymous sources so that they don't know it came from Moriarty. Watson's book, Sherlock Holmes book, is published. And even though Watson knows the truth about the Moriartys, he writes James Moriarty as a super evil villain to hold on to the myth and perpetrate the purpose of everything that happened.
Hold on. Am I the one with the bad connection, or are you also hearing something, Jason?
I'm not hearing anything.
What are you hearing?
It's got to be my connection then, because you guys are both frozen, so it's got to be me.
You're looking fine on our end.
Am I moving?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're moving. I can hear you just fine.
I'm not like skipping or anything. Weird, because you guys are both skipping and your voices are going. So
weird. Okay. I'm going to push through. If you can't understand this, just ask me to repeat.
Okay.
We're almost to the end.
Cool.
Yeah, so Watson's book is published, The Final Solution. And he keeps Moriarty as the villainous character that the legend would be, so there's not to ruin anything, even though he knows the truth. Mycroft gives a copy to Lewis, who also gets put in charge of a new government division in charge of secret agents called MI6. And he now doesn't hide his scar. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. According to my notes, Simon is put in charge of MI6.
It's
there
Simon,
we go. That's
the brother from the shadows.
And then Albert turns himself in saying, "Hey, I was behind everything. So punish me too."
I told William to do everything.
Yep.
Like, what's the point? He just wanted to suffer. I know. That's what they outright said it. He wanted to suffer. That's how he dealt with the sins.
And then we see Sherlock Holmes in Norway?
Switzerland.
Switzerland. The same thing. And he
ignorant American.
He orders a drink, and the bartender's like, "Oh, I get this different drink. And what are you doing here with such a small bag?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just pursuing a friend." And then at the same bar is William Moriarty, and he says, "Catch me if you can." And I'm really cool with the idea of that. Like, every night they hang out and play chess and talk, and then in the morning, like, William runs away to a new location and leaves behind some clues, so Sherlock has to find him because he likes making puzzles. And Sherlock's Sherlock likes solving puzzles, so they just have this friendship based on fulfilling each other's need while not letting people know they're alive.
I actually like that. That's funny.
It's kind of stupid, but and that brings us to our end. Any other thoughts on the ending?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, then let's go on to our final reviews. Jason, was your pick? You start us off.
It's definitely not a perfect anime, but I had a lot of fun. It was an interesting take to make the villain more of your protagonist that you follow throughout the story, and then hop between Sherlock and him and the two different parties. There were some good story beats. Then there were some cheesy ones, like bringing in Mr. Whiteley. So it's not a top 10, but it's definitely worth a watch. I'd give it a 3.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
This is definitely was a difficult one for me. The characters were not really engaging to me. I have a hard time latching on to villains when they start doing villainous things. And I know a lot of people probably call him an anti-hero, and maybe I think that's very subjective. But the whole premise of his approach to what he was trying to achieve, as well as the end goal of what he was trying to achieve, I kind of reject the whole premise. I don't think that what he's trying to achieve can be achieved, and I don't think it can be achieved the way that he's trying to achieve it. And so the whole thing kind of started off on a back footing for me, and then having it mix up the tones like that, where it doesn't seem like it's either melodramatic or it's just outright silly, like you guys were saying with Harvey Dent and stuff, or the physics just goes out the window, and things that kind of, to me, iron out that this is a consistent story and that this is a world where logic works and things will move in a way that you expect, which I think is very important in puzzles. How can you solve puzzles if things don't, if nothing is reliable, even down to physics? I had a really hard time with that. The inclusion of James Bond there was just so much weirdness in this anime. And then that final twist where all of a sudden did William get this guilt? I would have loved to have seen some of that building up to it. So I don't know. For me, there was a lot missing in the storytelling. I think that there was a lot of potential here. It could have been really cool in that regard. But yeah, I got to give it a 2.
Okay. To be 100% honest, the anime is probably just a 3. It whiffs in a lot of places. It makes some odd choices that I find fun, but are probably not good to do. Copying a movie, even as homage for 2 straight episodes, is just so bizarre. But because it's Sherlock Holmes, because it's an interesting, unique look at characters that I'm already a big fan of, that I enjoy seeing, that I've seen in multiple different versions of, and kept me entertained through the whole time, I'm going to go with a 4 as my official rating, even though it definitely could have used some work in the storytelling. So a 4 for me.
That explanation from Jeremy really solidifies why he won't play Rusty Lake games.
No, I need my logic and physics. Things got to make sense. Exactly.
All right, our next anime is To Your Eternity. This is a big anime. At least it was when it first came out. So we're watching the first 12 episodes. So episodes 1 through 12, and then we'll do another podcast finishing that. So that's what we'll be watching next. And it's Jeremy's pick. If you have thoughts on tonight's anime, Moriarty the Patriot, or anything else that we've discussed recently, feel free to reach us at our Twitter at Baka Podcast, our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast and it'll get back to us. We enjoy your comments, YouTube, wherever you want to leave them. We enjoy those discussions and chatting, and so we look forward to those. With that, I think we're ready to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Catch me if you can.
Sayonara.